This is Colin O'Keefe with Ed Walters, the CEO of Fastcase. We are coming out of course, the seminar at the Practising Law Institute on social media for client and business development. One of the things that you mentioned in your session was that we're kind of entering into a renaissance era for big data. Can you explain what that means just a little bit?
Yeah, so there's two very exciting things that are happening both at the same time. First, from the federal government and from states too, there is a directive to publish more data, the Open Government Directive, and you see all of these new data sets coming out of the federal government. For example, the Code of Federal Regulations in XML format, free, downloadable, anybody can repurpose it, and you see that this entire ecosystem of entrepreneurs and websites who are using this data set to create all of these innovative ways of looking at the Code of Federal Regulations. Awesome. The flip side of that coin is in the private sector. So companies and nonprofits are putting forth the law.gov effort, trying to make public law more public, accurate, updated, downloadable, authenticatable, free. And this has never happened before. I mean, this stuff has always been really locked down, either in books or in commercial databases behind walled gardens. But what you see right now, right around 2010, 2011, is that things are just starting to turn. And the amount of law that's coming out in free, authenticatable, reliable ways is dwarfing the amount that's coming out in the walled gardens. This is the Renaissance era for big data.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the things that I really found extremely interesting, and one of the topics that we touched on a lot, was the relationship between, I think we call it primary law and secondary law. And you talked about how there's kind of a chicken and the egg type situation. And I'll let you just explain your thoughts on that, because I thought that was particularly interesting.
Well, I think that lawyers could be incentivized to blog more authoritatively about the law. There's so much potential to create really interesting secondary material. You see some of this in some law blogs, but in my opinion, just not enough. So there's the ratio of really interesting things being said in blogs is too low. Mm-hmm. So I just think that if there were good incentives for people to create more interesting content, then they would do that. But no one wants to create the incentives because there's not enough people. This is the chicken and the egg problem. Mm-hmm. So somebody's got to come out there and say, look, we're going to build systems that will give people an incentive to write intelligently about the law. And that's something we're excited about at Fastcase. My company is working to kind of lower the walls of the walled gardens around the law and integrate better with law anywhere on the web. So we're trying to push that primary law content out to other places in the web and then bring relevant content from the web into Fastcase. If we put our fingers in the ears, in our ears, like other companies do, and pretend like nothing else is going on out there, that's a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. All of the future is about more public law and more of that outside content being incorporated into research services. So I'm really excited about that. I really think it's going to be important and a real differentiator for my company, Fastcase.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then just the last question, we talked a little bit about kind of the future of the free law, or future of free law, and just kind of the future of legal publishing. And you mentioned one of the biggest things is legal publishing is becoming more unbundled. How do you see kind of Fastcase playing a role in that? And then what do you just mean when you say it's becoming much more unbundled?
Well, in the past, there were only a couple of places where you could get access to the law. And perhaps because of that, they tended to sell it in ways that bundled in their editorial services. So you couldn't, for example, subscribe to Westlaw, but just get the primary law materials. You had to buy the headnotes and the citator and Wright and Miller and everything else. So it tended to be really expensive. Even if all you wanted was, New York statutes, for example. So one of the best trends about more free law and this Renaissance era for big data is that for the first time, entrepreneurial companies are able to publish the law in this undoctored fashion, sell it in an unbundled way at a much lower cost. So if you need the editorial stuff, the secondary stuff, by all means, go pay very high prices to get it. It's valuable, it's worth it. But if all you need is the unbundled primary law, there ought to be more ways to buy that. So, that really animates us at Fastcase. We've been doing this kind of unbundled primary law service where our value is really as a software company. We really view this as a service, not as a content subscription, but as a service. Good software, good reference attorneys who help you find stuff. But the content itself ought to be free. So we've been very active in the law.gov community, putting more law online for free, because we really think that that's not what we're doing as a company. That's not our value. It's not the data. And if you look over 5-10 years from now, all of the primary law is going to be available for free. It's not copyrightable. People are going to put it online. You already see it online in a bunch of other places. So if your business is looking at this as a content play or some sort of content service, if all you're doing is giving mere access, that's a dying model. It really has to be about the services you put on top of it. Services like currency, accuracy, authoritativeness, smarter search tools, neat distribution channels like iPhone and iPad. But if you provide those services, then it's really valuable, not editorial, not the kinds of secondary materials that get lumped in the past, but services you can buy and pay what your actual value is for them. So that's the value of unbundling. In a big data world, you can't really lump in editorial stuff for people who just want to buy the primary stuff.
Definitely. Perfect. That's all the questions that I had. Thanks
Awesome.
for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Perfect.